Hello, everybody. My name is Michelle St. Pierre, and this is Valhalla Mortgages. I'm a mortgage agent level 2. I service all of Ontario. I do residential mortgages, whether it's debt consolidations, purchases, refinances, reverse mortgages, and of course, investment property purchases. I run the whole gambit there. If you have any questions for me, my calendar link is in the description below, which means you can book directly on my calendar through that. And we can have a quick 10-minute phone call and we could review whatever issues you want to go over. This video is all about buying your first rental property while keeping your home your home. So you currently own a home and you want to buy a rental property. This is going to be a three-part series because there are other options to buying a rental property. I'm going to do another video after this about how to move into a new property and convert your existing home into a rental. Slightly different process. And also, if you're a first-time home buyer, I'm going to have a special one for you about how the process of buying a duplex or a triplex with a vacant unit and moving into that and starting your investment journey that way. So let's go through this. So buying a rental property while keeping your current home as your principal residence. So first you need 20% down. Pretty simple rule. You have to have 20% down. That can come from a couple sources. It can come from savings. Now, if it is coming from savings, typically we need about 30 to 90 day history. Every lender is different. I have some that want 30 days. I have some that want 90 days history of savings. Keep in mind too, if you are selling anything, like let's say you have a motorcycle that you're selling or a vehicle or just anything in general, as long as we have bills of sale and copies of deposits and all of that, we can use funds that aren't vested for that 30 to 90 days as long as we have a history of where that money is coming from. So that's very important to remember too. So you don't always have to wait. This is why talking to the right agents come in handy to make sure that you're doing the steps necessary. You might not have to wait as long as you think. Of course, the other option is using the equity in your home for the down payment to buy that next property. Great solution because that allows you some additional tax deductions if you set things up properly as well, which we're going to go over. So we have ETOs, which is equity takeout, which is basically redoing your mortgage. Let's say you have a mortgage of $100,000 on your house and you need $100,000 to buy a rental property. Then you increase your mortgage by 100, so now you have a $200,000 mortgage on your house. That's the simplest way of looking at it. Or of course, HELOC, you add that $100,000 home equity line of credit to your home. That's another way of doing it. But of course, there are very strategic ways of doing this, which we're going to go over. Now, gifted funds is also an option. Typically on the B side, they allow gifted funds for rental properties. On the A side, they do as well, but typically they want you to have a lot of skin in the game. So they'll allow you to do gifted funds past a certain point. Typically, you'll have to put up the 20% down yourself. And then if you have gifted funds from blood relative, they will allow you to add more from that. But you still have to come up with the 20% down yourself. So equity takeout or HELOC. So this is where having the right mortgage package up front can save you interest, fees, and taxes. And what am I talking about when I say the right product? Well, when we sit down with you at the beginning, even when you're buying your first home, we're going to want to make sure that if buying rental properties is what you want to do in the future, that we're setting you up with a collateral charge mortgage product. So like a Scotia Step, a TD Flex line, a Manulife One. Basically, this is a combination of like a mortgage and home equity line of credit kind of product. So as you pay down your mortgage, home line of credit limit goes up. So you still have access to the money you've paid down. Or in many cases, you've approved for an equity plan and you have different components available to you. So let's say you have a $500,000 equity plan, but you only have a $300,000 mortgage on your house. So you have $200,000 there of available equity that's already approved that you can use at any time. This is where it becomes very important because by having this type of product, now you already have your down payment available. You already have it ready to go and you're not paying interest on it because it's just sitting there in the available component, but it's not actually pulled out. So there's not like a mortgage component there where you're paying interest on. It's not a balance on a line of credit. It can be a line of credit limit available, but you're not paying interest on it. So this is why we have to set these things up properly to begin with if you want to be a real estate investor in the long term. I'm a big fan of these equity type products, these collateral charge mortgage products, for that reason. Great for investors. Also for tax reasons too, because if you have an equity plan at, let's say, Scotia, and you have your mortgage on your house, and then you have another component, which was what you used to get for the down payment for your rental property, well, now you have a tax deductible component because you use those funds to buy an investment property. So whatever interest you're paying on those funds, since it's separate from your mortgage, which makes it easy to track, you now have a tax deductible component there. And I have a video on my channel about how to use that rental property to make most of your mortgage, if not the whole thing, tax deductible through rental cash damming, which I'm going to link at the end of this video. Qualifying. Well, the way you qualify for a rental property is similar to qualifying for any property. You have your total debt service ratios and your gross debt service ratios. Focusing on total debt service ratio for now, because that's where a lot of people get the hiccup problem. Because don't forget, when you're buying a rental property, you have to qualify for the existing borrowing that you have on your home, plus the heating cost and the property taxes of your home. So you have to qualify to keep your home and buy the rental. The only difference is now that we're buying the rental, so the debts of that rental property have to be considered as well. We do get to add the rental income. So you have to have enough income to qualify for your home and the rental, but you get to add the rental income as well. So that's how people end up buying rental properties. They have that extra income coming in from the rental, and they tend to be very conservatively lent out individuals already. Either they make a lot of money or they have very few debts already. So that's kind of how it works to buy your first rental property on the A side. And one of the advantages too is we can use market rents. So a lot of people get stuck on this. Well, it's a duplex that's been sitting there for years. The tenants have been there for a very long time. The rents aren't that high. How do I qualify? Well, we can use market rents, as in we get an appraisal to reappraise what rents would be, and we can submit those to the lender, and the lender will use the higher rent. As long as it's reasonable and makes sense, they will use that. So to quickly summarize, remember, when you're applying for a rental property, the total debt service ratios of that are your home, any debts you have, and also the qualifying criteria for the rental property. So the property taxes, the heating, the mortgage payment, and if it's a condo, the condo fee. Some lenders are a little bit different. They will exclude certain things, but prepare for that type of calculation, and that's how you end up getting that rental property. Now, what do I mean by say we can do both applications together? Well, remember, as I spoke before, if you are using equity from your home to buy that rental property, we could set it up in a way beforehand where it's just sitting there ready to be advanced at any time, so you're not paying any interest on it. Or if it's like, I see this rental property right now, I don't have the equity plan ready, we want to go and jump on this opportunity right now, we can submit the equity takeout, whether it's going to be a line of credit or a second mortgage component under an equity plan, to the same lender we're sending the rental property to. We can do both in one go. So they can approve the whole file in one go and manage the whole file in one go. Now this brings up another important thing about qualifying as well, is the term offsets. So if you're ever wondering why or how someone can have multiple rental properties, it's because they're using rental offsets properly. Now, rental offsets, this is for if you're submitting both applications, or if you're buying another rental property and you already own a rental property in your portfolio. This is where the offsets are important. This is why choosing the right rental properties for your portfolio are so important, because if you use the offsets properly, it's either those rental properties are either going to null out to zero on your application, which is good because you don't want to have any liabilities that you have to cover with your income for those total debt service ratios. Or if it's really good and you have a great offset, then you actually get an income from each rental after all the expenses are calculated. And that doesn't help you necessarily qualify for much more, depending on what stage you're at with the rental property. If it's been in your portfolio for years and paid down a lot, then maybe. But typically just a little bit of bolster income, but ideally you want to look at those options, right? So let's go over how offsets actually work. So let's say I own a rental in my portfolio, or I'm doing an ETO on my house and buying a rental property at the same time. So the ETO application looks at the rental property as it's in my portfolio already, because applications are going to be done this way, right? If you're buying the rental property and doing the ETO at the same time, then on the rental property purchase, they factor in what the new lending on your current house is going to be, because that's how that qualifies. And then for the rental, the ETO, pardon me, they factor in the rental property in your portfolio by using the offsets. So that's how it works to qualify. So one of my favorite lenders has a 50% offset on their rental properties. So that means you're allowed to take 50% of the rent to offset the mortgage payment. So how does that work? Well, I've set up some examples here. So let's say you have a rent coming in of $3,000. So let's say it's like a duplex and you get $3,000 worth of rent. Well, you can cut that $3,000 in half, which is $1,500. So I'm allowed to use $1,500 to offset the mortgage on that rental property. So if that mortgage payment is $1,500, that means the $1,500 rent, $1,500 mortgage, they balance out to zero. I don't have to add any liabilities for that rental. I'm not allowed to add any income from that rental. It nulls out to zero, which is great because that means I have a rental in my portfolio that's not affecting my ability to qualify for more money in either way. Because if you look at the example below that, I've got a $3,000 rent coming in with a $1,600 mortgage payment. So I cut that in half. So I have $1,500 worth of rent, and I can offset $1,500 of the $1,600 mortgage. That leaves me with a deficit of $100. So now a rental property like that, I have to add that into my liabilities because I have to carry that with my income if I want to apply for more money or apply for another rental or apply for more money out of my house. I have to carry that deficit now in my portfolio. Not ideal. $100 isn't bad, but if it's a lot of money, then it can really affect you. And then, of course, there's the other option where, depending on what part of the country you're buying in, because this is also important too, right? Like you don't have to always buy in the most expensive areas. The country's a large place. There's lots of lower priced homes, lower priced condos. Let's say you have $3,000 rent coming in and your mortgage payment's only $4,000. Pardon, you have $3,000 coming in and your rental payment is $1,400. So you take that $3,000 divided by 2, that's $1,500. I'm allowed to offset $1,500 on the mortgage. The mortgage is only $1,400, so that leaves me with a surplus of $100. So with that surplus, I could add that surplus to income. So I can add an additional $100 a month to my income on the application for future buying of rental properties and whatnot. So this is why and how you have people who own multiple rental properties on the A side of lending, because they're very strategic with how they use the offsets on future applications, right? So when they're buying rental properties, they're not just buying a house for the sake of owning a house. They're doing the numbers to make sure that, hey, if I want to buy another property, how is this property now, this rental? How do lenders look at it? Is it going to affect my ability to buy in the future, or is it going to be nulled out to zero? Or is it going to add some income to my portfolio, allow me to qualify for a bit more for the next one? Individuals who use the offsets properly, their main driver for buying the next home tends to be just down payment. Because if they null everything out to zero, or there's a little bit of surplus income, then whatever's in your portfolio doesn't matter anymore. It's your ability to keep carrying on to the next property and using your income and being able to carry the debts on your house and then qualifying for that next rental, because the rentals in your existing portfolio are already offsetted by the rent. That's how you get multiple properties in your portfolio. A little bit of a secret. And I touched upon this very briefly, but this is why you have to shop in the right markets, because there are markets where you can get properties that cash flow like this, or close enough where it's not really affecting you that much to buy your next rental. Work with professionals who do the math for you. That way you understand that, hey, if you buy this property, this is your mortgage payment, this is rent coming in, this is what it looks like on your portfolio. If you want to buy another property, it's either going to help you or hinder you. We got to make sure that you're choosing the right ones. Buy your first rental property while keeping your existing property as a place where you're going to live. Once again, I'm Michelle St. Pierre, and I'm a mortgage agent level 2 that services all of Ontario. If you have any questions, please follow up with me. I'd be glad to answer them. My calendar link is in the below, and please like, comment, and subscribe.